There is hardly any other industry that brings as much joy, entertainment, and good humor to the world as the music industry. Millions of people still dream of becoming world-famous musicians and to storm the charts one day. But with all the glamour that this industry sprays, there is also a darker side of the music industry. In this video, we will present you the sinister truth about the music industry. We show you not only the blatant business tactics that deprive musicians of gigantic earnings, but also how legal disputes are gradually destroying music, and we'll also reveal how criminals are using art for their own ends. It's going to be extremely exciting and revealing, so be sure to stay tuned here at Wonderlane. We want to start this video directly with a development that has become completely normal for us as fans, but is still the reason why even successful musicians have an extremely hard time making a living from their art. That is streaming. Nowadays, music streaming on platforms like Spotify or Apple Music is the most popular way we consume our favorite songs. However, this was not always the case. In the past, record labels and musicians earned their money mainly through the sale of CDs or records, usually offering them in stores for about $15 to $20 each. In this way, not only were the labels able to generate an extremely high turnover, but also smaller musicians were able to earn a not so insignificant amount of money through the sale of CDs. But when CD sales dropped massively at the beginning of the millennium due to illegal pirate copies and online piracy, the music industry's sales also plummeted. The lifeline for the labels at the time were tech companies like Spotify, which enabled a completely new way of consuming music: streaming. Now, anyone could listen to any song in the world for a monthly subscription of around €10, and the streaming services shared their revenues with the record labels. In the distribution of this revenue, one party was left massively behind, and that was the musicians themselves. Today, streaming services pay about €0.004 per streamed song, less than half a cent per stream. This means that an artist earns around €4,000 if a song is played 1,000,000 times. This money usually has to be shared with the record company as well as producers and several songwriters, which is why even with several million streams, only a few euros remain for the artist. This has several consequences. On the one hand, these small amounts make it increasingly difficult for small artists to make a living from their music, which is why many talents end their careers prematurely. And on the other hand, even established musicians have to look for new sources of income, which are not always entirely uncritical. For example, numerous stars are reportedly criticized for offering extremely expensive deluxe boxes without much added value, or overpriced concert tickets, and some of them enter into businesses that are difficult for fans to understand and occasionally even end up as a scam. For example, more and more musicians are currently advertising NFTs, i.e. digital items with the promise that they will increase massively in value over time. But often these NFTs lose a lot of value, and the fans who bought them make a big loss. In addition to streaming, there is another development that has been causing many industry experts increasing bellyaches for several years, and that is the music itself. In recent times, the trend of suing each other for copyright infringement has increased extremely. In the meantime, there is hardly a major hit that doesn't end up in court in some form or another. For example, Ed Sheeran had to answer for his mega hit Shape of You in an extremely long lawsuit, as a relatively unknown songwriter sued him for an alleged theft of the chorus. Although Ed Sheeran won the case, many stars do not get off so successfully. For example, shortly after its release, Olivia Rodrigo credited two members of the rock band Paramore as co-songwriters for her song Good For You, because there was a passage in the song that many fans thought strongly resembled a Paramore song. Many observers suspected that due to a threatened lawsuit, Olivia Rodrigo only gave the two rock stars a share of the song's proceeds as a precautionary measure to avoid the lawsuit. Although most accused artists win such lawsuits in court, the lawsuits still come with a lot of costs, stress, and negative PR. In this context, there is also another development that should be critically examined, because you will have noticed it already. In recent years, many major artists began to re-release old songs of themselves in remixed versions. Of course, the main reason behind this is money. The popularity of the hit guarantees financial success. The best examples of this are music legends such as Elton John, who took on Dua Lipa to help him make good use of his own songs with Cold Heart and other songs, or Dieter Bohlen, who has been trying for years to get young talents to revive his songs. Even if this practice is of course legitimate, it is at the expense of creativity and originality, similar to what has been the case in Hollywood for years. Besides the music itself, there is another extremely sinister side to the music industry, for which we return to streaming for a moment. Nowadays, it is extremely easy not only to create false charts and trends through manipulated click numbers, but also to illegally launder criminally acquired money. This can be done with purchased clicks, which have repeatedly made headlines in recent years. Evidence is mounting that purchased clicks are also being used more and more by criminals to launder their earnings from illegal businesses such as theft or drug selling. These fraudsters can then spend this money to ensure that a certain artist, who usually acts as a strawman, gets extremely high click numbers via a platform and accordingly also receives money from the streaming services. However, this money is then absolutely legal, whereby black earned and untaxed money from criminal activities flows into the economic cycle without any problems. In addition to buying fake clicks, there is another method that strangers can use to enrich themselves from other people's music. This method is not illegal, but in the eyes of many fans, it is extremely harmful to music culture and the artists involved. In recent years, music has increasingly become an object of speculation for financial investors who have little to do with music. These investors buy the rights to certain songs only to resell them one day at a higher price. Probably the most famous victim of such a deal is none other than Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift, who is now one of the biggest pop stars in the world and is streamed billions of times, was under contract until 2017 with the American label Big Machine Records, through which she also released her first 6 albums, and which accordingly she also owned the publishing rights to these albums. But in 2019, American entrepreneur Scooter Braun, who, by the way, is also the manager of Justin Bieber and Ariana Grande, announced to buy Big Machine Records and become the new owner of Taylor Swift's songs. For Taylor Swift, this was the worst thing that could happen to her, because in the past, she often had problems with Scooter Braun and his business practices. But for Braun, this transaction, for which he spent $300 million, by the way, was a good deal. Just a few months later, he sold the rights to Taylor Swift's songs at a profit to a financial investor who had absolutely nothing to do with music and is now happy about the income from his hits like Shake It Off or I Knew You Were Trouble. By the way, such actions also pose a big dilemma for numerous fans who actually want to support their favorite artists financially. If they stream old songs by Taylor Swift, for example, it's not Swift who earns most of the revenue, but a financial company that sees her music as a pure investment. Now that we have presented you with numerous downsides of the music industry that make it clear that a lot is going extremely wrong in this industry, we would like to conclude this video by talking about some developments and aspects that can encourage you as a fan as well as an artist. Nowadays, a lot of big artists like Taylor Swift or Billie Eilish insist not only on being actively involved in the songwriting process, but also on keeping the rights to their songs. As a result, they are putting a lot of pressure on the platform companies and finance companies, which are changing their business models to give artists much more of a say than they did a few years ago. So there are silver linings on the horizon for small artists, with streaming and social media making it easier than ever to get discovered. Either way, there are some exciting developments that could see the darker side of the music industry gradually disappear. Drop us a line in the comments and let us know if you'd like us to make another video about this, and if you're interested in what the future of the music industry could look like. At this point, we hope you enjoyed the video, subscribe to Wonderlane for more cool videos, and we'll see you next time, here at Wonderlane.